The Galactic Council chamber was filled with light and sound, 1,000 voices speaking in pride and arrogance. They laughed as they spoke of Earth, mocking the blue planet that had once begged for help, once asked for a place among them. For years, Earth had been the joke of the galaxy, the example used when delegates wanted to explain weakness, division, or chaos. They told stories of human desperation and failure as if it were entertainment. To them, Earth was nothing but a noisy, fragile world, but on this day something felt different. The lights in the chamber flickered just for a second. Delegates ignored it, but the silence that followed was unusual. A message, scrambled and broken, appeared on the great holoscreen. At first, no one understood the language. Then the translation system caught up and the chamber froze. It was a human voice. "You have gone too far," the voice said. The delegates shifted in their seats, whispering. Some laughed, thinking it was a desperate attempt from a dying species. Others frowned, unsettled by the weight in those words. There was no plea, no cry for mercy, only anger. Then the signal cut. The holoscreen went dark. The council leader, a tall being of glass and crystal, raised his shining arms. "Ignore it. Earth cannot act. They cannot move against us. This is nothing more than an empty threat." But even as he spoke, the chamber's long-range sensors lit up with warnings. Something massive had entered the outer system, something big enough to trip every alarm. At first, the delegates assumed it was a natural anomaly, perhaps a rogue comet or a dust storm of cosmic scale. But the signal sharpened, refined, and the truth became clear. They were ships. Huge, heavy, brutal ships. The chamber fell into silence. No one spoke now. The laughter died in throats, the arrogance turned into confusion. What kind of ships could Earth possibly build? They had no resources, no great shipyards, no famous engineers. Yet the images appeared in sharp detail, and no one could deny what they saw. The first vessel emerged from the black. It was unlike the elegant designs of the Council fleets. Where alien ships were smooth and graceful, this one was all angles and armor. It looked like a predator carved from steel, black as night, with glowing blue thrusters burning bright. Its hull was scarred as if it had been tested in battles far from their sight. Weapons lined its sides, mass drivers, rail cannons, missile pods, brutal and efficient. No decoration, no diplomacy, only war. Behind it came another, and another, a dozen, then more. The Galactic Council had never seen a human fleet like this. To them, Earth had no such power. For centuries, they had kept humanity weak, forcing Earth to sign treaties that banned heavy weapons, limiting their fleet to old transports and outdated frigates. But now those treaties meant nothing. Delegates whispered again, but this time in fear. "Impossible. Where did they build this? Who gave them this technology?" The answer was clear. No one gave it to them. Humanity had built it in secret, hidden in shadows far from the Council's watchful eyes. They had waited. They had prepared, and now they had returned. The Council leader tried to laugh, but his voice shook. "They will be crushed. Our fleets outnumber them 100 to 1. But doubt spread quickly. Those who knew humanity's history remembered their wars, their resilience. Humanity was the species that survived burning skies, freezing wastelands, collapsing empires, and endless conflict. They were the ones who adapted when others fell. To push them too far was to wake something dangerous. Another transmission appeared on the holoscreen. This time it was not just a voice. A man stood tall in the projection, wearing the uniform of an admiral. His eyes were cold, his voice steady, carrying across the chamber with a weight that made even the most powerful species lean back in their seats. "For too long," the human said, "you mocked Earth. You took from us, humiliated us, and called us weak. You believed there would be no consequence." The delegates shifted uncomfortably. Some tried to speak, but the admiral continued, his voice cutting through them like a blade. "Today," he said, "you learn the cost of underestimating humanity." The projection faded, leaving silence heavier than before. No laughter now, no arrogance, only the sound of hearts beating faster, claws tapping nervously on tables, wings folding tight against alien bodies. The fleet on the screens grew larger, wave after wave of warships appearing from the void. Black metal beasts, glowing engines, weapons primed. They moved in formation, disciplined and precise like a predator circling its prey. The council chamber, once filled with proud voices, now sat frozen. For the first time in centuries, the rulers of the galaxy had no words. Something cold settled into their bones. Humanity had risen and nothing would be the same again. The storm was coming, and it carried Earth's name. The council chamber was still heavy with silence after the last transmission. The human admiral's words echoed in the minds of every delegate, as if the walls themselves still carried the sound. The laughter was gone. The arrogance was gone. All that remained was unease. But unease was not enough to break old habits. Slowly, one of the elder delegates stood, his long arms folded across his chest. He was from a race that had ruled for millennia, a race that had fought no wars in centuries. His voice was calm, almost mocking. "Do you all forget so quickly?" he asked. "These are humans we speak of. They are fragile. They are chaotic. They are divided. Have you all forgotten the records of their history? Their planet burned with wars, their nations fought each other endlessly. It is no wonder they look dangerous, violence is all they know. But they cannot win. They never win." His words found support among others. Slowly, whispers rose again. They spoke of Earth's desperation, Earth's poverty, Earth's humiliation. They remembered a time when Earth begged the Council for aid that was denied, because humans had nothing to offer but promises, one by one. The memories of humiliation were spoken aloud, as if repeating them would erase the fear pressing in on their hearts. They remembered the mining colonies on the rim, where humans had worked as laborers for alien corporations, digging into rock that was not theirs, earning wages barely enough to survive. They remembered human ambassadors standing in this very chamber, pleading for fair trade routes only to be laughed at, their requests dismissed with a wave of a claw or the flick of a wing. They remembered the day Earth's first small fleet entered Council space. Old, rusted ships, patched together from scraps carrying crews that had never traveled beyond their moon. They had looked pitiful, crawling into the chamber like children pretending to be warriors. The delegates had laughed then too. "Look at the humans," they had said. "They think they belong among us." And when Earth dared to stand against the exploitation of its colonies, the punishment was swift. Entire stations stripped bare, fleets disarmed, leaders humiliated. Humanity was dragged to the floor and forced to sign treaties that left them powerless. Yes, they remembered, and remembering gave them comfort. If humanity had been weak before, surely they remained weak now. Surely these new warships were nothing more than a desperate illusion, a trick, perhaps stolen technology from some forgotten empire. But not all shared this comfort. At the far end of the chamber, a small delegate leaned forward. Her skin was pale blue, her eyes wide with unease. She spoke in a quiet tone, yet her voice carried because the silence was so heavy. "You speak of humiliation," she said, "but I speak of survival. Did you not see how they endured it? Did you not see how they bent but did not break? They signed your treaties, yes. They bowed their heads, yes. But they remembered. They learned. That is who humans are. They suffer, but they endure. And when they rise stronger than before." The chamber grew restless. Many scoffed at her words, but others shifted uncomfortably because deep inside, they too remembered different stories. Stories of humans fighting in wars far beyond their borders, joining conflicts they had no reason to join, yet refusing to surrender even when hopelessly outnumbered. Stories of humans adapting to alien worlds where no one else could live, breathing poisoned air, eating poisoned food, and somehow surviving. Stories of humans who fought to the last breath, not because they believed they would win, but because they refused to kneel. The Council had mocked these stories as savagery, but now in the shadow of the fleet that loomed closer with every passing moment, those stories felt like warnings. Another delegate spoke, his voice sharp with fear. "We humiliated them. We kept them low. We told ourselves we were keeping peace. But what if all we did was build a fire inside them? What if this is the fire we now see?" The hollow screen flickered again, showing the human fleet moving slowly but surely through the system. The ships were massive, their engines glowing like burning stars. Their formation was perfect, their discipline unnerving. They did not rush. They did not stumble. They advanced with the calm confidence of predators who knew exactly what they were hunting. The delegates stared. Some clenched their claws, others folded their wings tighter, others lowered their heads in silence. Yes, they remembered humiliation, but now they remembered something else. Fear. For the first time they wondered if humanity had been waiting all along, waiting in the shadows, biding their time, turning humiliation into fuel. One alien whispered, almost too softly to hear, "Perhaps we should have killed them when we had the chance." The word sent a shiver through the chamber, because deep down many realized the truth. They had laughed at humanity too long. And now the laughter would cost them everything. The silence returned. Only the sound of the holoscreen remained, showing Earth's warships moving closer one by one, blotting out the stars. The galaxy had humiliated humanity. But humanity had not forgotten. Humanity never forgot. And now, revenge was on its way. The council chamber felt like a tomb. No one laughed anymore. No one mocked. All eyes were locked on the great holoscreen as the human fleet pushed forward from the darkness of space. Each ship came into view like a shadow made real, massive and merciless. At first, the delegates thought there were only a handful of them. But as the fleet spread, more and more warships emerged from the black, slipping out of hidden folds of space like predators from tall grass. The first vessel filled the screen. It was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. Alien fleets were famous for their beauty, ships carved like works of art with glowing sails and elegant silver hulls. But the human warship was no art, it was a monster. Its body was black steel, built not to shine but to endure. Armor plates stacked over each other, scarred with burns and scratches that proved it had seen battles and survived. Dozens of cannons lined its flanks, each one big enough to tear a city apart. Its engines glowed with furious blue fire, brighter and stronger than anything they expected from a backwater world. It looked alive, as if the ship itself was angry. Behind it came another, and another. A dozen cruisers followed, their weapons bristling, their engines cutting streaks of light through the void. Then came the smaller craft, corvettes, escorts, strike ships, all moving with perfect precision. There was no chaos in their formation, no hesitation. Every ship moved as if guided by one mind. The delegates began to whisper, fear creeping into their voices. This is impossible. Earth had no shipyards. Who gave them this technology? But the truth was written in the very design of the ships. No alien hand had touched them. These were human vessels through and through, brutal, practical, efficient. Ships built by a species that had fought wars for survival on their own world for thousands of years. Every angle, every weapon, every piece of armor carried the mark of human will. The holoscreen widened its scope and the chamber gasped. The fleet was not a dozen ships. It was hundreds. A wave of black steel stretched across the void, engines burning blue like a storm of fireflies, weapons gleaming like the teeth of predators. The galaxy had known fleets before, grand armadas of the Council, endless swarms of insectoid hives, mighty carriers of the avian races. But this was different. This fleet was built for one purpose. Not defense, not patrol, not intimidation. It was built for war. The council leader slammed his crystalline staff against the floor, his voice sharp with anger, though his tone betrayed fear. It is a bluff, it must be. Their numbers are too few. Our fleets will crush them in hours, but his words rang hollow. Already other delegates were staring at the sensor reports flashing across their consoles. Human ships were larger than expected, heavier than expected, faster than expected. Their weapons burned hotter, their shields held stronger. A commander from the reptilian factions hissed in warning. Our fleets hesitate to engage. They say the humans fight like no others. They say once the humans strike, they do not stop. The chamber filled with nervous voices. Some demanded immediate retaliation. Others begged for talks. But none could look at the screen without feeling the same cold truth pressing into their hearts. Humanity had not come to talk. Humanity had come to show what it had hidden all these years. And then the screen shifted again. The human flagship appeared. It dwarfed the others, a black titan of steel and fire. Its engines glowed like small suns, its hull bristled with weapons, its command tower rising like a fortress in the void. The ship radiated power, the kind of power no weak species should ever possess. The holoscreen zoomed in on its bridge, but the glass windows showed nothing but shadows. And yet the council felt as if the ship itself was staring back at them. The silence inside the chamber deepened. Not one delegate spoke. Not one dared. Because in that moment, every species present realized the same thing. The humans had not built this fleet overnight. They had built it in silence, in secrecy, in defiance. Every humiliation, every insult, every broken treaty had been turned into fuel. Humanity had waited. Humanity had prepared, and now they had come. The Council, rulers of the galaxy, who had laughed at Earth for centuries, now sat frozen, watching the dark storm gather, and far out in the void, the storm kept moving closer. The holoscreen flickered again, pulling every eye in the chamber toward it. Static filled the air, and then the image sharpened. A man appeared, human, dressed in a dark uniform marked with silver lines of rank. His shoulders were broad, his posture steady, his face carved with the calmness of someone who had seen wars and never forgotten them. His eyes were cold but not cruel. They were eyes that measured every soul in the chamber and found them wanting. The Galactic Council, rulers of thousands of worlds, sat silent before him. They had mocked humans for centuries, called them weak, chaotic, unworthy of power, but the man who now stood on their holoscreen looked like no weakling. He looked like judgment. When he spoke, his voice was steady, strong, and unshaken by the weight of the galaxy that listened. For too long, he said, you mocked Earth. The words hung in the chamber like a blade over their heads. No one dared interrupt. You took our colonies. You stole our resources. You laughed when our ambassadors begged for fairness. You made treaties to bind us, to keep us crawling while you soared, and when we resisted, you crushed us. A ripple went through the chamber. Some shifted in their seats, others looked down, ashamed, or perhaps only afraid. You believed Earth was too weak to rise, the human continued. You believed we would bow forever. You were wrong. The image behind him shifted. The holoscreen widened, showing the vast human fleet hovering in formation behind his flagship. Hundreds of ships, black steel burning blue fire, filled the void like a storm waiting to break. The admiral raised his hand, and the image returned to his face. His voice grew harder. We endured humiliation. We endured chains. We endured your arrogance. But we never forgot. Every insult, every cruelty, every loss, we carried them with us. We built our fleets in the shadows. We prepared in silence. And now, he leaned forward slightly, his eyes cold as ice. Now we answer. The chamber felt smaller than ever. The delegates who had ruled for centuries now felt like children caught in a storm too big to escape. Some wanted to shout, to protest, to claim innocence, but none could. Their voices were trapped in their throats. The admiral's tone did not rise, yet it carried the weight of thunder. We did not come to negotiate. We did not come to beg. We came to show you that humanity is no longer the servant of the galaxy. We are no longer the joke. We are no longer the weak. His words struck the chamber like hammer blows. The silence after each sentence was louder than any cry. Then his voice dropped lower, colder. Today, you learn what it means to underestimate humanity. The holoscreen went black. For a long moment, no one moved. No one even breathed. The silence was crushing, as if the walls of the chamber had grown heavy with the weight of what they had just heard. Then the screens lit again, not with the admiral's face, but with the fleet itself. Dozens of ships turned as one, their weapons glowing to life. Energy readings spiked across the consoles in the chamber. The humans were not bluffing. Their weapons were armed. Their fleets were ready. One delegate cried out, "They mean to strike!" His voice broke with panic, and it set the chamber into chaos. Voices clashed, some demanding fleets be sent at once, others begging to sue for peace. But no one could hide the fear that gripped them all. The humans had spoken their declaration. They had promised no mercy, and every alien in that chamber, from the proudest empire to the smallest colony, knew one thing in their bones: the storm was about to break. The chamber's walls shook with voices of panic, but outside, far beyond the council's grand spire, silence ruled the stars, silence, and the growing hum of power. The human fleet was no longer just a distant shadow. It was now in striking range. Their formation was perfect, an iron wall of warships, each one glowing with the fury of engines that seemed too strong for their size. They waited, patient and cold, like hunters watching prey too foolish to flee. Council fleets scrambled into position. Thousands of alien ships lit up across the void, their hulls shining in colors of gold, silver, and crystal. They had numbers on their side, so many that their formation looked like a glittering sea of light. For centuries, they had crushed rebellions with overwhelming strength. Numbers had always been enough. But not today. From the human flagship, a single coded signal pulsed through the fleet. Engines roared brighter, Weapons glowed hotter and targeting systems locked. The first strike was coming. Inside the chamber, a reptilian delegate shouted, "They dare not fire first. They know the council will erase them if they do." But his words were weak, hollow. Deep down, even he knew the truth. The humans had not come this far to threaten. On the hollow screen, the void lit up. The first volley left Earth's ships like a thunderclap across the stars. Massive railguns fired, slamming projectiles at speeds that tore through space like meteors. Plasma cannons glowed, releasing bolts of white-blue fire that blinded sensors. Missiles streaked forward in swarms, splitting and multiplying until they looked like burning storms. The Council's first defense line vanished in seconds. Ships that had been symbols of galactic pride exploded like paper caught in fire. Shields shattered, armor tore apart, and entire crews were silenced before they even knew the battle had begun. The humans had not fired blindly. Every shot was calculated, every strike precise. The chamber gasped as ship after ship winked out of existence on their tactical displays. Delegates screamed at commanders through comlinks, ordering counterattacks, demanding resistance. But the Council fleets faltered. Their elegant formations broke apart in chaos as human warships cut through them like blades through water. A massive alien carrier tried to launch its fighter wings. The humans anticipated it. 3 destroyers swung into formation and unleashed a barrage that tore the carrier in half before its fighters could even leave the hangar. Another alien battleship, proud and ancient, charged its main cannon. The human flagship answered with a single railgun shot that split the battleship clean down the middle. The council chamber fell into terrified silence as the hollow screen filled with destruction. The glittering sea of the council fleet dimmed, replaced with clouds of fire and wreckage drifting in the void. But the humans did not pause. They advanced. Their engines glowed brighter as they pushed deeper, relentless and unstoppable. Strike groups broke off, targeting command ships and supply lines. Alien admirals tried to reorganize, but every move was countered before it even began. "They fight like machines," one delegate whispered, staring wide-eyed at the screen. "No, worse than machines. They fight like they've already won." The battle became slaughter. Council ships fled in panic, breaking their proud formations. Human corvettes chased them down, tearing through retreating vessels without mercy. Cruisers focused their fire on capital ships one after another, until the void burned with wreckage. Inside the chamber, a delegate covered his face with trembling hands. How can they do this? "Their fleet is smaller, yet," a quiet voice answered him, trembling. "Because they fight to end us, not to scare us, not to punish us, to end us." On the hollow screen, the Council's second defense line collapsed. Where once thousands of ships had stood, only wreckage remained. The humans had cut through fleets that had been considered invincible. And still, they advanced. The human flagship's weapons flared again, firing a barrage so powerful it shattered an entire formation of defenders in a single strike. The shockwave rippled through space, slamming into nearby wrecks, scattering them into glowing dust. The chamber had been full of rulers who once mocked Earth. Now, every one of them sat frozen, staring at the unfolding destruction. Their fleets, their pride, their power, it was being stripped away before their eyes. The humans had fired the first strike. And with it, they had announced to the galaxy that nothing would ever be the same. The chamber trembled with the silence of realization. The galaxy's masters had awakened a storm they could not stop, and the storm carried the name of Earth. The council chamber was no longer a place of power. It was a cage filled with trembling rulers, forced to watch the galaxy they had built fall apart before their eyes. The great hollow screen showed only destruction. Where once their fleets had filled the void with color and pride, now there was nothing but drifting wreckage. Flames and debris painted the stars red and black. Human ships moved among the ruins like shadows, efficient and merciless, finishing what they had started. No one in the chamber spoke. No one dared. The silence was thicker than steel, heavier than stone. Delegates who had once raised their voices in arrogance now sat frozen in fear. Their claws trembled, their wings twitched, their tendrils curled tight against their bodies. Some could not even look at the screen anymore. Yet the sound of their fleets dying still echoed through the chamber. Faint transmissions of screams, alarms, and static before ships were cut off forever. The council leader, once so proud, stood rigid at the center. His crystalline body, always glowing with calm light, was dim now, cracks of fear running through it. His voice, when it came, shook. This cannot be. They are humans. They are not supposed to be capable of this. But the truth was undeniable. The screens continued to show the human fleet pressing forward, their weapons flashing in deadly rhythm. Alien ships broke and scattered, their formations gone. Some fled only to be hunted down by swift human escorts. Others tried to fight only to be erased in storms of fire. The chamber's silence was broken only by the gasps and whispers of those who finally understood. They don't stop. They don't retreat. They fight as if they came here to erase us. Another voice finished, trembling. The human fleet advanced with cold precision. There was no hesitation, no waste, no mercy. The delegates realized then what separated humans from every other species. They had always seen war as a last resort, as a thing to be avoided, contained, or managed. But humans accepted war, embraced it, turned it into something sharp and unbreakable. One delegate with trembling hands slammed his fist against the table. We should have ended them long ago. We should have burned Earth to ash before this day could come. The words sent a chill through the chamber, because everyone knew deep down they had the chance. They had humiliated Earth, stripped it of power, forced it to kneel. But instead of crushing it completely, they had left humanity alive, alive to suffer, alive to remember, alive to rise again. And rise they had. The chamber doors opened suddenly and a messenger stumbled in, his scales scorched, his breathing ragged. He fell to his knees, crying out before collapsing. The fleets are gone, entire armadas destroyed in hours. The humans are unstoppable. His voice broke into sobs before he fell silent, his body shaking with terror. Guards dragged him away, but his words echoed in every heart. The fleets were gone. The chamber fell into silence again. Delegates sat motionless, their pride shattered, their power meaningless. For centuries, the Galactic Council had ruled without challenge, dictating the laws of the stars. But now, in one terrible strike, their empire was broken. The holoscreen zoomed in on the human flagship once more. Its engines glowed bright blue, casting long shadows across the void. Its weapons still glimmered with power, ready to fire again. It was more than a ship, it was a symbol of humanity's revenge. And then a single message echoed through the chamber, carried across open frequencies for all to hear. A human voice, calm and merciless, spoke only 3 words: never again kneel. The chamber froze. No one moved. No one breathed. The words struck harder than any weapon, heavier than any fleet. The Council, once the voice of the galaxy, sat in complete silence. Not because they chose to be silent, but because fear had stolen every word from their mouths. They had mocked Earth. They had enslaved Earth. They had humiliated Earth. And now, Earth had answered. The galaxy's proud rulers, the masters of 1,000 stars, were frozen in fear because humanity had risen. The chamber lights glowed dim, casting long shadows over the faces of the delegates. They had not spoken for hours. The great Galactic Council, once so loud, so proud, sat silent, broken by fear. Outside, the holoscreen still showed drifting wreckage, the ruins of fleets that had once been symbols of dominance. The humans had not only destroyed ships, they had destroyed the illusion of the Council's eternal rule. Then the image changed. The human fleet, dark and terrible, now floated in perfect formation, weapons still glowing but silent. They did not chase the last survivors. They did not burn every world in sight. They waited. They held the stars with patience that was more frightening than the battle itself. At the center, the human flagship loomed like a black mountain against the void. Its command tower lit up once again, and the figure of the human admiral returned to the chamber's holoscreen. His face was calm, unreadable, carved in stone. The delegates leaned forward, though none wanted to. His voice carried across the chamber, steady and cold. "It is done," he said. The words cut through the silence like a blade. "Your fleets are ash. Your pride is dust. But we did not come here to exterminate your worlds. We came for one truth, for you to understand. Humanity will kneel no more." Some delegates dared to shift, opening their mouths to speak, but his gaze silenced them. He continued, "You treated us as tools. You treated us as children. You treated us as slaves. You believed that cruelty would keep us weak. But it only made us stronger. It only made us remember. And now the galaxy will remember too." The holoscreen shifted, showing the human fleet spreading outward. securing systems once under Council control. On distant colonies, human banners rose, glowing blue against the stars. For some alien species, those long crushed beneath Council arrogance, it was not a symbol of terror but of hope. They whispered among themselves at last, someone strong enough to break the Council's chains. The Admiral's voice hardened. A new order begins today. Earth will not rule by fear, but Earth will not be mocked, enslaved, or silenced ever again. Those who respect us will find an ally. Those who seek to chain us will find only fire. The Council leader, his crystalline body dim with cracks, tried to rise. His voice trembled. If you end the Council, the galaxy will fall into chaos. The Admiral's eyes narrowed, and for a moment his calm face became something colder. Chaos? He asked. The Council was chaos. For centuries you built peace only for yourselves while others suffered in silence. That era is over. He raised his hand, and the screen filled once more with the human fleet, rows upon rows of warships stretching into the void. They were not conquerors drunk with glory. They were soldiers standing guard, iron and fire forged from years of pain. This is not your galaxy anymore, the Admiral said. It belongs to all who will stand free, and humanity will make sure of it. Then the screen cut out, leaving the chamber in a silence more crushing than ever before. The delegates sat frozen. They were rulers no longer. They were witnesses to the birth of a new power, one they had once mocked and enslaved. A power that had risen from humiliation to stand unchallenged. Outside, the galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. For the first time in centuries, the Council was silent. For the first time in history, humanity spoke and the stars listened. The storm had come and passed. But it did not fade away. It left behind a new sky, and in that sky the name of Earth burned brighter than any star.